Hey, it's Bilal, and this is Deep Sea, the podcast about seeing the world more deeply. All my working life, I've been forecasting financial markets. First at big banks like JPMorgan, Deutsche Bank and Nomura, and now at my own research firm, Hive. Throughout, I've always had this niggling feeling that it's a fool's errand. Can I seriously predict the future? In the end, I make peace with myself that my objective is not always to be right, but to be right more often than not. But more importantly, the fear of being wrong is always driving me to research how to become a better forecaster. As it happens, some of the best work in this area has been done by the American political scientist Philip Tetlock. He summarised his work in the excellent book called Superforecasting, the Art and Science of Prediction. He studied the so-called experts you see on TV pontificating about who will win the next election, what war will break out, or when an economic crisis will hit. He found that they give very compelling stories, but most of the time you can't pin them down to a time frame or discrete future event, and you can never determine whether they were right or wrong. But when Tetlock was able to identify actual predictions they made, he found that their track records were dismal. For him, this partially makes sense, as they were being picked more for their entertainment value and how they look on TV, rather than their forecasting skill or track records. Saying this, I am getting nervous about my own TV appearances. Instead of the high-profile experts, he found instead that the real super forecasters were people like Doug Lorch. He's a retired IBM employee who lives in Santa Barbara, or Devin Duffy, a welfare caseworker in Pittsburgh. What they lack in TV appeal, they make up in their approach to forecasting. Tetlock found these people as part of a special project conducted for US intelligence, which was aimed at improving forecasting of political and other events. He found that the way you approach forecasting, rather than your credentials or political leanings, matter most. If you're a one big idea person, what he called a hedgehog, you'll struggle. While if you're a pragmatic tinkerer, what he called a fox, you'll do well. And he listed 10 commandments for aspiring super forecasters. And here they are. Number 1, focus on questions where your hard work will pay off. So don't bother with questions that are impossible to answer, like who'll win the US election in 2036. It's too far out to bother predicting. It's much better to focus on the upcoming election. Number 2, break big problems down into smaller ones. This will allow you to see how much you don't know and which part of the bigger problem is most difficult to forecast. Number 3, strike the balance between inside and outside views. There's nothing new under the sun. So first, calculate the odds of an event happening based on similar ones in the past, what he called an outside view. Then work out the bottom-up or inside view of the specific event. I use this technique often. For example, if I'm trying to answer the question of will China suffer a collapse in growth, rather than starting with Chinese-specific dynamics, I'll start with similar cases seen elsewhere in the world. Number 4, strike the right balance between under and overreacting to evidence. So you have to carefully incorporate new evidence and update beliefs accordingly. The best forecasters are incremental belief updaters. Number 5, acknowledge the counter-arguments. If you believe military action never works, be open to the possibility that it might. Take both views and synthesize. This guards against your personal beliefs and ideology obscuring reality. Number 6, distinguish as many degrees of doubt as a problem permits. So your uncertainty dials need to be more precise than the classic 3 settings of certain, maybe, and impossible. Rather, you have to translate vague hunches into numeric probabilities. Number 7, strike the right balance between under and overconfidence. You have to understand the risk of rushing to a judgment, but also you have to understand the risk of dawdling too long near maybe. Number 8, don't justify or excuse your failures. You have to conduct unflinching postmortems. This can be tough. It's tempting to move on to the next forecasting challenge, but you have to learn from your mistakes. Number 9, bring out the best in others and let others bring out the best in you. So you have to master team management, which includes learning how to take perspectives, which means being able to reproduce the other person's argument to their satisfaction. You have to learn how to question precisely, which means clarifying arguments so that there's no misunderstanding. you also have to learn how to have constructive confrontation, so learning to disagree without being disagreeable. Philip Tetlock's 10th commandment was to master the error balancing bicycle, which means learning requires doing with good feedback that leaves no ambiguity about whether you're succeeding. So get your hands dirty with actual forecasting, have clear signals as to whether you're right or wrong, and learn. Finally, Tetlock threw in one extra commandment, which was don't treat commandments as commandments. So forecasting will always be tough, but at least Tetlock gives us a solid framework and perhaps some hope after all. Thanks for listening. Please tell a friend about the podcast, leave a rating on iTunes, Overcast, Spotify, or wherever you go for your podcasts. You can follow me on Twitter. My handle is @BilalHafiz123. That's @BilalHafiz123. You can also follow me on LinkedIn, or you can find me on my blog, bilalhafiz.com. For my research work, you can go to macrohive.com. I'll be back soon, so tune in then.